Welcome to another episode of The Soul of the Everyman on the ArtistFirst Radio Network. All past shows are archived. You can find them at ArtistFirst.com. Send your questions and comments to dj@artistfirst.com. And now here they are, Michael and Margaret Lines.
And thank you very much, Z-Man, for that wonderful service that you always do for us.
Mm-hmm.
And that rolls as a segue right into tonight's topic, isn't it, Mark?
Yeah. No, tonight's topic is something that we all are exposed to at one point or another, and it's service. Service. Right. It's a topic that most people don't really think about until they are much older. You got to get past childhood. Unless you are taught at a young age to be of service, which is kind of an interesting thought because nowadays it doesn't seem to be the going thing.
Well, I think you're right. You're right that it is something that you come to in your maturity, and I think it's a natural thing. And when you're a child, you expect, if your family is taking care of you, you expect to be served in some regards. You are the dependent.
Mm-hmm. And I think. Oh, I'm sorry. No, I think that the first inklings of the fact that someone is serving you when you're little, and it depends on the spirit of the child, but our crew wanted to be independent at an early age, and they didn't like it to have someone doing for them all the time. It was always, I do it.
I do it.
I do it.
Well, and that's true. I mean, you have children that are more accepting of dependence, and those who are perhaps more like some of our guys, less accepting of dependence and more wanting to be independent. But I think what I was going to say was that in many cultures there was sort of a ritual, a sort of a stylized way of saying that I am no longer a dependent. There was this ritual of passage, and you would become a man or become a woman, and you would, in essence, be of age, whatever that age is. It could be 13, it could be 21, it could be like today, like you're 40. By the time you're basically fully independent. So they say 50 is the new 30, and that means 30 is the new 10. So I mean something like that. But in truth, once you have kind of crossed into your maturity, you now are expected to serve as well as perhaps be served. But you're no longer somebody's dependent. You're supposed to be independent, and at least take care of yourself. And then there's the responsibility of taking care of others, and those two words are really intimately intertwined, which is responsibility and service.
True. Because growing up, as you see that, first of all, you're not capable, and when you can't do it, you do accept the help. And then that turns into, well, let me do it.
Mm-hmm.
And then as you get proficient and much better at it, then you're like, oh, here, let me help you. That sequence and cycle is a natural flow of things. You learn how to receive help as well as give help.
Mm-hmm.
And learning that in order to give help, you need to be able to have something to give, becoming proficient in the gift.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the focuses that you wish to teach the children, how to become proficient in a talent that they may be able to gift. So it's interesting when you see progression of a person from that dependent stage to the ability to gift to another. And that's when the service comes in.
Mm.
You know, you that internal feeling of, well, I want to help, is very strong in a human being. You know, you when you participate in a relationship, there's a natural give and take, and it's, how do I say this? It flows.
It's reciprocal.
Mm-hmm. And you know it's got to be reciprocal. It just can't be one or the other. There's an internal in each person that knows that to be just one, exclusively one or the other, is wrong. You just know it's wrong.
You mean exclusively receiving or exclusively giving?
Right.
Yeah. And so, in some regards, once you've reached your age of maturity and you are able to give, you have you are sort of predisposed to give. In some ways, the human relationship is a relationship of balance and shared responsibilities and sort of trading these things back and forth. So to be of service is also to be worthy of being served, and to be able to be competent enough to help somebody. It also speaks about how your nature, your value to that other person. If part of a relationship is what you can do for the other, whether it's your child or your spouse, or just even in an economic relationship.
Yes.
Your worth is to the extent that you can provide your service, that your service has value, and the more competent, the more trained you are in a particular task, the more valuable it becomes. So service on that level is certainly related to your own self-worth and your worth to others. If you become more and more and more trained and competent and able, more able to do things, you can find that more and more people will want you to do those things, whatever they may be. But then there's another aspect of service, and I think the aspect of service that is often talked about when you talk about a life of service is when you are talking about providing service to those who cannot repay you. And that's where we talk about people who are seen as great leaders in the spirit, Mother Teresa or Christ or Buddha, or and many unsung and less famous people whose lives, who've reached a point of maturity where it's not just a trade, and it's not just about competence or self-worth. It's in essence becoming the channel for grace to flow through you, becoming the hands of whatever it is, the all or God, and providing service to those who cannot repay you except in the large. In essence.
Yeah. That perspective, again, it's part of that process.
Right. Well, I mean, so when Mother Teresa gives a crust of bread to someone who's dying in the streets of Calcutta, she's never getting that person to give her a crust of bread back. But it doesn't matter, because the service that's being provided, although it's on an individual level, it's on a personal level, the service is being provided is a channel for grace to flow from one voluntarily, and this is very much the key. You have to volunteer to serve. If you are coerced into service, those two words, and this is very important, Many people get this wrong. You cannot be forced to serve. You can be forced into servitude, which is a very different thing. You can be forced into slavery, very different thing, but that's coercion. Service, by its nature, is voluntary.
Mm-hmm.
Without you deciding that you wish to do something and then doing it, it is not service. It may be subservient, love language. It may be servitude. It may be slavery, but it's not service. Service is from the heart.
Well, it is definitely agreed on. You make the decision to serve. Whether you like it or not is moot.
That's a very good point.
Mm-hmm. You make the decision to serve. And even though you may love, like taking care of a loved one, there are many times when there are things that you must do that you just, as a person, you just don't like it. But it still needs to be done. And that's another aspect of service, is that you're answering a need.
Mm.
You decide to fill a need that you see is lacking in a situation or in another person, to help them with that.
Mm.
Which is one of the reasons why you participate with that. You choose to be of service because you realize that there is a greater need being met by something that you can help fill.
Mm.
And that's when the heart is speaking to you. Because the heart understands when there are holes in a situation or a relationship or a person. You agree to help. Now, it doesn't mean that you become like a host in a parasitic relationship, okay?
Right.
Where you're feeding a life's blood to this other person or a situation. You agree to help, and you are free to withdraw the help if you so choose. In other words, you're not being forced completely in that situation.
Well, you said two things that are really worth unpacking there. The first is that when you see a need, the perception of a need evokes a call to you. You say you are now seeing something which you could do, and then there's a decision to be made. Do I wish to do it or do I not wish to do it?
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a piece there which I think a lot of people get stuck on. And the piece that people get stuck on with service is the concept of sacrifice.
Right.
Now sacrifice is a word which has become sort of, I think it's fallen out of favor in today's society. And largely, we can harken back to sort of the Cultural Revolution, do it if it feels good kind of things. And I'm not going to fight that battle again. I'm just going to say that as far as the human being is concerned, we can look at the words of the Buddha. In some ways, the denial of self is a step in towards maturity, and it's a step towards the spiritual. The sacrifice basically means denial of self. It means that you put something else before your own desire. You give something up. But this has become a sort of a dirty word concept in modern day Western society. Well, we never give anything up. We're always young. We're always healthy. We're always beautiful. All those things. But when you talk about service, you said it. You don't necessarily always want to do it, but you make a decision. You make an informed decision. You say to yourself, I will give something to this situation or to this person. Something that maybe I don't necessarily want to give because I'd like to keep it, but I feel that the value of the person, the value of the situation, is worth the sacrifice of me, of my time, of what I have that I can give. And you say, well, you're right. You can't just always give. But sacrifice isn't necessarily a loss. You can sacrifice and gain. You know, the concept of and this is a very Christ-like concept, but it's also in Buddhism, of service, which in essence ennobles the server, so that that in serving you become, the last shall be first. You become great because your service ennobles you. It shows your connection with the all. It actually shows that you're disassociating yourself from the petty concerns of, I want a cupcake, or I'd like to do this, watch this TV show, or whatever it is, and you're putting yourself more in tune with the channel, with the grace, with the all. That which must respond to need. You said it also, just to unpack this last thing, which was that you see a need and you say, I could help, and then you have to channel something. You have to say, from where will I get this grace? And so you become the vehicle by which you become a finger of the hand of God. That's Christ's concept, is that you open yourself, you sacrifice your individuality, not your cupcake, but your individuality. You say, I will become one with the greater, and I will do what God has placed in front of me. This is the concept of sacrifice, which people don't get, or they don't want to get. They want to say, well, why should I give up that? Because I want it. Yes, if you all want to be children, but if you want to be ennobled, to be connected with the all, you have to give up this. You have to give up the personal you and the cupcake.
Well, and it means that, again, I think we've said this before, you really have got to come to a point where you say, well, I've had enough of me. I know what I am thinking and not thinking, and how many times have I done this?
I've had enough of me.
But it's true.
Yes, you come to the end of self.
Right. And you realize that, okay, I'm more than just this concern and this craving that I have, and satisfying that craving, because cravings are funny. They always come back. Okay? It's just the way of the concern of the self. You cannot fill yourself because you are inherently empty in that particular area. All right? And you have talents, you have been gifted with things, but you're not gifted with everything. Otherwise, you would be not here, you wouldn't be human. But when you come to realize that there are voids in you, vast empty spaces, and some people...
Vast empty spaces.
Yes. And some people have it between their ears. Some people have it in their heart.
Unfortunately.
And some people, their physical bodies, you are handicapped in some way, shape, or form. And you yourself cannot fill that. And it is by understanding that being in relationship with others, are you capable of beginning to build on who you are, show your, how do I say this? The spaces become filled by the interaction with another. And that filling allows for an opening of your consciousness and your heart to be able to receive the grace that's needed for that moment. And it surpasses you. In that moment, you realize this is something that I myself did not have a few moments ago. This is something that has been poured into me because of the opening of my heart and that love that is receptive. to what is needed in this moment. And it calls to mind the phrase or the biblical set of, let me think now, I believe it's Corinthians. But when God says, my grace is enough,
sufficient,
my power is made perfect in your weakness.
Exactly. And I think, just to go, before we go too far past this, when you open yourself to grace, you get two things. So let's just play the situation out. You see something which requires action, requires service, and you think to yourself, I would love to help here, but I don't feel up to it. This task is too big, too much for me. And instead of saying, and this is a valid answer, no, I can't do it, I give up, I don't know how. You say, I don't know how to do it, but I will open myself to say, if it needs to be done, give me my power is sufficient. Give me the power to do this, that it may get done. If it's, again, we're kind of talking sort of Western Christian, but in the sense of the Buddha, you would say, if this requirement needs to be fulfilled, let me be the one to fulfill it. You open yourself as a channel for that grace. It's more than you even expected. You say, give me the power that I need to do this, and you get overflowing with grace. And all you then have is the ability to direct it. You say, okay, with my volition, I will be the channel for this action.
But you are guided to what the next steps are.
Yes.
You say, when you say volition, it's not that you're necessarily choosing. What you've been given is the ability to tell whether or not the next step that you take is going to be in light or whether it's going to be in darkness.
Well, yes, but I think even beyond that, even when walking, let's say, in the light, you don't necessarily get to say where the light shines. You just are the conduit for it.
Well, you basically follow through on that. What I'm saying is you have given over to the point where you understand already that this is beyond you and beyond your understanding and beyond your comprehension of this immediate moment. We've all been in situations where it looks really good on the outside and then it's rotten on the inside. Or it looks awful on the outside, but there was an amazing gift coming in by taking that particular road. The only way you can discern which way to go is by opening up your heart and allowing that perception of it's a high, sweet, pure frequency. Use energy terms, where your heart knows that this is where it begins to ring true. I can't go down the other road because it's not clear. It's a thud instead of a beautiful resonance. I'm serious. That's what it feels like. This is a thud.
You are a thud. But you're absolutely right. It's a great way of putting it. But to come back to service, in training yourself as we go from dependence to independence and from independence to service, which is, it almost seems like a new form of dependence or a new form of you go, when you're dependent, you're also under someone's control because people tell you what to do. And you do it, and then when you're independent, you're like, well, I can do whatever I want. And then all of a sudden, you move yourself to service, and you say, well, wait a minute, now there are kind of people trying to tell me what to do again. But I think people get stuck there too. And the key is what you just said, is that it's not dependence on the person, or rather, you are putting yourself into service, but you're putting yourself into the mode of I open myself as a vehicle, and you, and let's just call it the all, the spirit, the God above, takes you into its service, and then you say, I will, I give, I open myself to your direction. I receive and I take your direction, and I serve where I am put. Now that level of service may appear from the outside to be almost like a subservient, or like a almost a controlled sort of existence. But the freedom is imbued in the fact that you always are saying yes. There's always a question: do you want to serve? Yes. And so when you say yes, when you give your volition, you aren't saying it to the people that you are serving. You're saying it to the power that you are serving. It's serving this way. You're serving up, not down. It looks like you may be serving the people that are in front of you, but you're actually serving the power which is behind you. Whether the front or behind doesn't matter. The power that you're serving is what you're becoming one with, the all, the universe, God, whatever you want to call it, and you're becoming. It's a new stage of development, not a stage of going back to dependence. And I think this is where people kind of get hooked up in it. The other thing you mentioned, and we can't go too far in this. We'll do it next time, but next half hour, is the concept of people having voids, of people having openness in their lives, or emptiness in their lives. And if you remember, there was one wonderful quote where the woman at the well. This is going back to the New Testament. And basically the conversation goes along the way of that Christ asks for water, and she draws water, and he says, if he basically says to her, if you knew with whom you were speaking, you would ask him for water, and he would give you water which once you drink of it, you will never thirst again. Well, what does that mean? It's being filled with the emptiness of thirst is something I drink, and you know what? Tomorrow I'm going to be thirsty again. I'm never able to sate my thirst forever. But this ability to fill the empty space forever, and using the analogy of water and saying to somebody, well, you'll never be thirsty again. Well, in the physical you will, but not in the spiritual.
Mm-hmm. It fills that void, that need.
Mm-hmm. But you're also you're not just a vessel which holds water forever. What you are is you become a conduit of water or grace that flows through you, flows into you, flows out of you.
And that grace is enough.
Sufficient.
Mm-hmm.
And you're not thirsty. You get to partake as well as serve. Your needs are met. Your sacrifice is not a sacrifice by which you suffer. The sacrifice is that you give up your illusion of complete independence.
You give up the illusion of separateness.
Yes, that's even a better way of putting it. You give up the illusion of separateness, and you mature yourself from the separateness or the dependence of a child to the independence of the proto-adult, to the full circle connection to the greater, that is the highest, the level of true enlightenment.
Right. And it is understanding that in that dependent state, as you begin to mature and become an individual, you are taking steps in what the modern world would call autonomy, where you're independent and you're capable.
Mm.
But coming out of that into just that single autonomy is only part of the journey.
Mm.
And there's a lot of people that just want to stay right there.
And the thing about that, Margaret, is that if you stay right there, that's where the emptiness is.
Mm-hmm. You have only investigated half of the Tao.
Right. You only have the Da. And on the other side, we're going to go to the studio for a little break, and we're going to find the Ow, and we're going to talk about it in the next half hour.
The Fat Man Gets Out of Bed is the latest book from Michael Lyons, the award-winning author of There is a Reaper. Featuring 13 original stories, this wide-ranging collection has everything. Forbidden love, gods versus demigods, weird invading aliens, sexy seductive artificial intelligence, and unusual passion between the living and the dead. All set amidst fantastic worlds of pain and loss and boundless joy. From the sublime to the macabre to the bittersweet, The Fat Man Gets Out of Bed will leave you breathless with laughter, brimming with tears, trembling with suspense. Available now on Amazon.com, Google Play, iTunes, Kobo, and fine e-tailers everywhere.
Hi, this is Pamela Foland. Check out my new book, Megan the Pet Whisperer, available at Amazon and BarnesandNoble.com. Please visit my website, www.pamelafoland.com. You're listening to the ArtistFirst Radio Network.
Taking God on Patrol is a first-person account of the world of law enforcement from the perspective of a Christian police officer in the fourth largest city in America. From speeding car chases to the crossing of the thin blue line, author Mark S. Cariner seeks to find God's biblical truth in a behind-the-scenes look at law enforcement. And check out Mark's newest book, The Tactical Heart. Both are available at Amazon.com.
Hi, my name is Christina Garlick, and my new book, Nevada Rain, is now available. It's a sci-fi fantasy story for ages 14 and up. I hope you check it out, and of course enjoy. Also, you're listening to the ArtistFirst Radio Network that has a station for everyone.
There is a Reaper is the story of 5-year-old Christopher Aaron and his life-changing struggle with leukemia. Winner of both the Indie Bragg Medallion as well as the reader's favorite silver medal for memoir, There is a Reaper has more than 100 Amazon book reviews and a 5-star rating. It has been described as life-changing, spiritual, a must-read. Just released on Audible and iTunes, this memoir is also available in paperback and on Amazon Kindle for only 99 cents. Get your copy of this life-changing memoir today.
You are listening to The Soul of the Everyman on the ArtistFirst Radio Network. Now back to your hosts. It's Michael and Margaret Lyons.
Thank you very much, Z-Man, again for that excellent service.
Are you?
And you know what? Yes, sir.
You're mocking me.
No, I would never do that.
I'm just kidding.
We would never do that. But in truth, what we were talking about last half hour was service, and the fact that our on our website, which you guys should always go and check out because there's some awesome graphics on there. But we talk about the fact that there's a quote there from the Buddha, but in essence, what it says is that a life without service is an empty life, and people will say to you, well, a life filled with, all the things that I want to do, and I get this car and I get this vacation, and I. Well, the singular, quote unquote, I-centered life is usually a very empty and also a very lonely life. I is the loneliest letter. See what I did there?
I is the loneliest word.
I is the loneliest word. I I is just going to keep on going because this is bad grammar. But but I can have cheeseburger. But at the end of the day, service, the ability to put someone else before self is the foundation. It's the fundamental cornerstone of relationship, and it's also the fundamental cornerstone of fulfillment. Maybe there was a society of beings at some point in the distant past, or will be in the distant future, where the I is fulfilled. Where you, the singular, the singular point of you, of I, is all you need. But human beings aren't like that. We are designed. We say this over and over and over again in The Soul of the Everyman because it's true. We are designed for relationship, and if you are designed for relationship, you are also designed for service.
Yes, it's to be. Well, again, the quote or the American Indians look at this place, this existence, this world, as the place where we dream the common dream. And that means that each person, each being, is capable of having their own dream and their own world, not interacting with anyone else, just there.
Just you.
But that is not where we are at right now. In fact, that singular existence is, again, sort of a one-dimensional thing. Infinite in all directions, mind you, but one-dimensional.
Very short directions.
No, it's infinite in all directions. I had an argument with someone about, oh no, but we are infinite beings. Well, yeah, of course you're infinite beings, but you're just one-dimensional, which is a very sad thing.
Right. And we have talked about this before, so I won't go spinning off into it too much. But when you go from 0 to 1 to 2, you go from nothing to infinite but unitary to a universe. The universe starts with 2. The relationship starts with 2. You can't have a relationship with 1.
Uni is in reference to the relationship. It is one relationship, but different parts that interact one to the other.
Yep.
So understanding that we have been made for multiple dimensional experience.
MDE.
Yeah. So if it's in a relationship, there are many ways to interact, but it is always that flow of give and take. So if you're taking, you are receiving, you are dependent, you are receiving the help. If you are giving, you are basically on the other side of that relationship of give and take. You are mature enough to give, which is an interesting thought. So you need to come to maturity in order to give.
And I would say that it's a both a hallmark and a necessary step.
But that is something that is not discussed. Because everything in this society is trying to concentrate you on you, I, the individual. And that's enough. You're just you. Well, that's you. You're supposed to be given an excuse for behaviors because that's you.
Right.
But again, you've stopped in your development. You've stunted your own soul growth by just focusing simply on you.
Yes. And what the premise here, the premise of the fact that we need to serve is that without service, when you keep it all about you, it's all about me. We had warning. Do you need this sign? If it's all about you, it's empty. It really is more than just empty. It's almost toxic. It's almost anti-life.
Well, you again, you only have so much life in you. It doesn't multiply. You cannot multiply yourself. It just is not going to happen. And the life force that you have been given, you can begin to wear yourself out. All right. Growth happens when there is that interchange between one and another.
Right. And I believe, if you again with the quote we had in the beginning, renewal happens through the interchange.
Yes.
Through the interchange of service.
Yes.
We renew ourselves.
I think it would be a good idea just to read the quote. A generous heart, kind speech, and a life of service and compassion are the things which renew humanity. Buddha.
Right, that's Buddha. And you can find, similar sentiments in many different religions. You can certainly find in the life of Christ the many examples of the last shall be first, the servant. One example that we were talking about yesterday or the day before was the fact that the washing of the feet. The washing of the feet sounds like something that it's always given as an example of service. We kind of abase ourselves to wash someone's feet. But if you really understand what's going on here in that culture, in the Middle Eastern culture, what was being said was that I am not just going to abase myself. I'm going to make myself, in essence, as the lowest of the low. The feet were considered an unclean part of the body, perhaps the most unclean part of the body. They touched earth, they touched dirt, they were continually used to do work. So your feet, and even to this modern day, shoes and feet are considered unclean in the Middle Eastern culture. So when you take someone who is supposedly an enlightened leader, a rabbi who has tens of thousands of followers and is basically claiming the kinship with the Spirit, kinship with God, saying, I will wash your feet. And you have to say to yourself, it's basically in a Western culture, and we had a good laugh about this, it's saying, we are going to have a ceremonial wiping of the ass. Say, you bend over, and I'm going to powder your tushy for you. And we would all go, what? It basically comes, that's the level of service that Christ was performing here. So in doing that, in putting yourself in the position of and you might, you certainly do this for your children, certainly would do this for someone who you loved dearly and needed this type of service. You say to yourself, if I will wipe your butt for you. That's how much I will serve you. Gladly, humbly, I will wash your feet. That's the service level that we're talking about here. And in doing that, you make yourself great. You don't, in volunteering to put yourself in a position of such lowliness, you demonstrate how little the lowliness of the earth means to you, how little, how much in esteem that the grace that's coming through me will make me allow myself to perform this service for you, because I love you. I honor and place you in such high esteem that I will provide this level of service for you. I will wipe your tushy.
Well, he is basically saying that his love is relentless. It doesn't matter how deep you've gone. He'll be there. He will be there for you. He's coming after you to help you. So you could be in the depths of all kinds of personal hell.
Addiction.
It doesn't matter how low it may seem to you. He is there. That kind of passionate love. I mean, to be able to do that, chase down someone into the depths of addiction, of
infirmity, of the people in the streets of Calcutta who are basically untouchables and dying in the streets.
And it's not a pleasant thing. I mean, the smell is horrendous. The diseases are horrendous. But the love surpasses all that. Love is so great that his loving hands come down and pick you up and hold you close to say, my child, I love you. You will not die as a dog here.
And in service, you become one with that.
Yes, because there's a part of you that understands that the actions that you take are a direct result of your heart state. Your heart opens and it's filled with a divine love that gives you in more than enough courage and strength and conviction to follow through.
This is a great point. Courage. One of the things that turns people off from service is that it looks weak. And it also looks like something that would make you appear to be also unclean or unlovable. You know, you look at you interact with someone who's unlovable, and maybe you're unlovable too. Maybe you need the courage to put yourself in a position of such what appears to be such weakness or such lowliness.
Well, the conviction must be there, because with that ability or that filling of grace into your heart, you can't help but complete everything that you do with that incredible love. It's a love that goes beyond all human understanding.
Yes.
And a peace even in the midst of sheer hell.
Exactly. And I say what I'm trying to say is that the key to this is it's a voluntary connection to service. And what we've been given these incredible examples, and the example of washing someone's feet or feeding the poor in Calcutta are one can say extreme, or they can certainly say that we aren't all given those opportunities to do those sorts of things. But service doesn't have to be dramatic, and it doesn't have to be overt, and it doesn't even have to be seen. The person who serves has a connection to two things: that which is served, whatever it is, and the grace that is coming in to permit the service, to allow it. And that's all that needs to be done. You know, the old again, we kind of talk about when you are someone who wants to be seen serving, you know, the photo op. You know, every politician can be seen handing out soup to the poor on Christmas Day or something. Well, those aren't the people. You know, that's sure, you've gotten your reward. You've gotten your photo op. True service is done anonymously, nearly. It's you don't even know what service someone is doing. You shouldn't even be able to tell necessarily that they are doing this type of service. So the idea, the maturity to be able to do that without the photo op, without the attaboy, without the, hey, you're such a wonderful person, gosh, I'd like to be like you, none of that. You don't need any of that.
There's a difference between being addicted to human beings, where you want the attention, and answering to the heart of who you are. The very heart of who you are is encapsulated, what's the word? The heart of who you are.
Captured?
Resonates at a higher level, at a greater level, at a more vast sphere of influence when God's love is in you. You resonate, your heart resonates to that incredible divine love frequency, a love without limits, without conditions, which is something we humans would, let's face it, there's always conditions on something. But to have your heart resonate in that unconditional love, there are no words. There are no words to describe that. You basically radiate a love that is recognized by other people, by other human hearts. The human heart recognizes when this is there.
Mm. That's true.
And it is fulfilling. It is a goal unto itself.
Exactly. Go ahead. Yeah.
And it's very... one must choose to take steps in that direction.
Yes. I mean, that's part of the whole thing is that you kind of have to volunteer yourself.
It's not standing there and saying, well, if I'm really a compassionate person, I should be doing this or I should be doing that. Those are the internal voices that say, well, let me figure out what I should be doing because I can figure out how to be compassionate. That statement alone is worth.
Well, I think that could be the beginning for many, many people, is that you feel that you kind of are obligated, you should do something, but it's not the end. It's really the very, very, very beginning of service might be, well, I should be doing something good for someone else,
And this is the beginning of what I would call religion. Because you're not involving yourself in an act of compassion that's coming from the heart. You are meeting a criteria to be checking off your list of to-do things if you're part of a certain religion.
Yeah, and let's that's a great topic, and we might have to have a show about that. But if we look at it from the point of view of, if you're in a particular club or group or religion or whatever it is, and they every Wednesday they go out and trim people's lawns or something. They do a little good deed. Well, this is a beginning. It's a very paint by numbers way of doing something good. Okay, so we don't want to no hate mail to the radio station, and Scott doesn't want to hear it. But the point is that doing good in a sort of formulaic way is fine. It is not the highest good. It's not necessarily the most fulfilling way to do good. It's not the most fulfilling way to serve. But it's certainly a way to serve. When you transcend, again, we talked about it a few shows and many shows, when you come to the end of self, it can be rock bottom, but it can also be, as you mentioned before, the highest kind of expression. I now know that all, that all what we call here life, the common dream, is something that you have to kind of rise above and understand, and then connect up with the higher and channel into this space. You don't have to be at the end of self where you are at the nadir. You can be at the apex. You can be at the highest point as well and be at the end of self. Self can be, to fulfill yourself, you have to destroy yourself. You have to come out of yourself. You have to no longer be a self. You have to be greater.
You have to come to a point where you realize your concept of self is not who you are.
Yes.
That's not really you. It's an idea of you, but
Right.
not who you are. Do you really know who you are?
Do you know who you are? It's true. It's true, and I believe the whole key there is that the concept is the thinking you. It's the
you that wants the attention all the time. I mean, you have to admit that there's a part of you that wants the attention all the time.
Yes, and it's unhappy when other people are getting the attention, or when.
Yes, and what is it that you do when you do not get the attention?
Well,
I mean, that's the beginning. That is really the beginning.
Yes, and that's one of the reasons I think why people sort of eschew the idea of service, because they think, well, that's not about me. Wait a minute. What am I doing here? This isn't about me.
Well, you still haven't gotten to the point where you realize you're more than your concept.
Yes.
You're still working through the concept. Okay?
Yes.
And it's a phase, mind you. I'm not saying that this is bad.
No.
And shouldn't be. What I am saying is don't stop there.
Right. It's very much, and this is very much in the way of the Buddhas or the way of Christ or any of them, is that it's a journey.
Seriously, is that all you want? Is a pat on the head? Is that all you want in your life? Is let me just pat you on the head? You're doing so well.
Well, and at a certain point in your life, that's what you need, but it becomes empty. After you've gotten your pats on the head and you've gotten your attaboys and yes, the first one feels great. The second one is like less, and you get to the point where that's not really doing it for me anymore. And if you just stay there, if you just stay in the kind of the eye focus, it's safe. It doesn't take much courage. It doesn't take much effort, but it's empty. And I think that's where you get to the point. Let's say after a certain point in your life, when no matter what, when we all come to the end of ourselves is when we die. And so when people get close and they start to say, well, I can see the clubhouse, and they say, man, my life is so empty. Well, because you stopped somewhere, and you stopped moving and growing and trying to fulfill, and you said, this is good, this is good, this is good. Oh, wait a minute. I'm not going to be able to stay here forever. I'm actually going to have to get to the point of the end of myself, and there's a internal reckoning. There's not necessarily a St. Peter with a checkbox that says, oh, you didn't do this, didn't do that, but there's an internal reckoning. Say, I didn't fulfill me. I didn't fulfill what I was supposed to do.
Right. And I think I mentioned this before, but there's a lady that I know of who had a near-death experience, and she had gone over and remembers going through that phase of reliving her life from birth to the moment of when she went there. And the perspective changes when a certain incident came up. She was able to remember how she felt when something was happening. And for her, it was like being on the bus as a child and being mocked because she had a bit of an impairment. And she was so angry at this kid that was doing it. But then she began to see it from his viewpoint, what this looked like and why he wound up doing it. And she felt so bad because his home life was horrendous. So she came back with that memory saying, you know what? I could have forgiven him instead of held on to it. So, yeah. It's allowing yourself to be able to learn how to have different perspectives, not just yours, but the other people that you're interacting with. And what is their experience? Because the same thing can happen to a whole room full of people, and each one will have a different story.
It's very true, and we should have a show about that. But just to close up on service, because we're coming to the end of this segment. But the idea here is that folks, and I think Margaret said it best, the beginning of the journey is knowing that you need to do something to fulfill yourself. The end of the journey is to come to the end of self through service, through understanding that you have to open up and become that channel.
Right. And we have come to the end of this show.
Of this service.
Show of service.
So
I'd like to say I'm Margaret.
And I'm Michael. And thank you very much
for listening.
For listening.